Consider a world in which every second paper is converted into currency, which propels the economy. Right now, machines at a federal facility in Washington, D.C. are producing more than $500 million in money every day, working around the clock to meet demand. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how much money is really in circulation. In reality, most of our money does not exist in physical form. It is digital, and it grows by more than $4 billion every day. So, where exactly does all this money originate from? Before money reaches your bank account, it has gone through many hands, governments, corporations, and individuals, all produced by merely inputting numbers into a computer. We've designed the whole process to demonstrate how money works, how it stimulates the country's economy, causes inflation, and eventually leads to the debt that affects us all. But before we get into it, let's take a step back and look at life before money existed. Thousands of years ago, if a farmer needed a new tool, he'd visit the local tool maker. But here's the catch. He didn't have anything to offer right away, so instead, they made an agreement. The farmer promised to pay in the future. Because the toolmaker trusted the farmer, that promise was enough to seal the deal. Sure enough, a couple of weeks later, the farmer returned, paying with food from his farm. Over time, people found it easier to use commonly traded items like cattle, grain, and salt to handle payments. These items were valuable because they were in demand but hard to come by. The farmer could now pay for the tool right away using just the right amount of grain, making transactions faster and fairer for both sides. But as trade grew, dealing with a bunch of bulky goods became a hassle, so people started using something smaller, more valuable, and long-lasting, metal coins like gold and silver. This opened up global trade, with people buying and selling from China to Europe. However, carrying around all that gold was risky and heavy. That's when things really started to evolve. In the 17th century London, goldsmiths began offering a service. They'd hold on to people's gold coins for a small fee and give them a paper note as proof. This note, which didn't have any value on its own, became as good as gold. Customers could take it to any goldsmith and trade it for the same amount of gold. It was super convenient, so people started using the notes to buy and sell goods instead. But the goldsmiths soon realized most people weren't actually asking for their gold back, so they started issuing even more promise notes, essentially fake money that didn't come from their actual gold supply. They loaned out this money, which had to be repaid with interest, making a tidy profit. And that's how the idea of money began to take a new shape. When a goldsmith loaned out 100 coins, they didn't actually lose any coins. Instead, they gave the customer a promise note worth 100 coins, which could be spent anywhere. Eventually, the customer would pay back the loan with interest, making the goldsmith 105 coins richer. Plus, when the customer used their money to buy goods or services, it made others wealthier too. That single loan increased the total amount of money in circulation by 100 coins, even though no new coins were actually created. This meant more money was in people's hands than what physically existed. As long as no one tried to cash in their notes all at once, the system worked fine. Fast forward to today, and we've essentially replaced goldsmiths with banks and promise notes with digital money. When 17th century goldsmiths started issuing these fake notes, it changed the game. Before that, no new money could enter the system, so the existing money just circulated around in a cycle. But this system had a flaw. Imagine a group of 4 people with a total of $100. If person 1 pays person 2 for food, the money moves, making things uneven. Then person 2 pays person 4 for a service, and again, the money moves. While value and productivity grow as money is exchanged, over time the supply becomes uneven and fewer people can participate, which slows down trade and hampers growth. This system only works if everyone pays the exact same amount at the exact same time, which is impossible in the real world. By injecting more money into the system, we speed up the economy, support business growth, and fuel progress. That's why a constant flow of new money is essential for our modern economy. So, how does all of this actually work? We think of banks as safe places to store our money, but that's not exactly what's happening. When you deposit money into a bank, they're actually in debt to you. The numbers in your account aren't real stacks of cash sitting in a vault, they're promise notes, indicating that the bank owes you that money and that you can take it out whenever you want. Loans work the same way, but in reverse. When banks lend money, you're the one in debt to them, and you have to pay it back. This is where money is really created. Just like the goldsmiths, when a bank gives out a loan, they don't lose money. They simply type new money into your account. This is brand new money that didn't exist before. The catch? When you pay it back, the money gets cancelled, and the bank only keeps the interest. But with that loan, you buy a new car, and that money eventually ends up in the hands of the employees at the dealership. They spend it, and the money keeps circulating, fueling businesses, driving innovation, and providing us with things like food. None of this would happen if new money wasn't introduced into the system. The catch, though, is that creating money doesn't always lead to more productivity, and that can cause inflation. If more money enters the system but fewer goods are being produced, prices rise because there's more money chasing the same amount of goods. This is why banks can't just create unlimited money. In the past, they could only lend out a fraction of their actual cash reserves. But today, banks have much more freedom to create money. If they're running low on reserves, they can simply go to the central bank and ask for more. And this is where things get a little crazy. To create new money, the government issues bonds, which are essentially loans that generate steady income. Banks, corporations, and even foreign countries buy these bonds from the US government, and the money they spend on the bonds gets funneled into the government's budget. The government then uses this money to pay people and companies, and eventually it circles back to the banks. But here's the problem. The government almost always spends more than it earns, so it's constantly in debt to bondholders. To pay off this debt, the government uses taxpayer money. Last year, the government spent nearly $7 trillion, but your tax money couldn't cover it all. So the government had to issue more bonds to raise additional funds, which only piled on more debt, and the cycle keeps going. As wild as it may seem, this system of creating money through debt is how most of the world functions. It's not necessarily a bad system, but it's definitely not running at full potential. If banks focused on creating money for more productive areas like businesses, education, and infrastructure, the money flowing into the system could lead to higher returns down the road. As you can see, the formation of money is both intriguing and difficult. From ancient trading networks to goldsmiths in 17th century London, and now to the digital money systems we use today, the way money moves across the globe has changed in ways we rarely consider. Banks may produce money out of thin air by making loans, propelling our economy ahead. However, with this power comes responsibility, because when too much money enters the system without a proportional rise in products or services, inflation may occur, disrupting our economy's delicate equilibrium. While not flawless, the monetary system has allowed for global expansion, innovation, and advancement. However, it is our responsibility to understand how it works so that we can make better judgments in the future. As long as banks continue to fuel the system and governments regulate the flow of money, our economy will develop in the same manner it has always done. So, the next time you deposit money in a bank or take out a loan, remember that you're not simply dealing with cash. You're part of a system that's always changing and affecting the world around you. And as the world evolves, so will the way money is earned, spent, and generated. Keep your eyes open. The magic happens every day.